Thank you so much for joining us today for our session focused on expressing care to build relationships. We're excited, as always, to create this virtual community with you. My name is Glenn Manning. I'm the Senior Project Manager here at MCC for Caring Schools. All of my work deals with schools serving students in grades K through 12. I'm joined by my terrific colleague, Elise Kaufman. Elise, wanted to say hello for us very quickly and let us know maybe a little bit about your background.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elise. I'm a current graduate student at the Harvard Graduate School of Education and have the privilege to work with the Caring Schools Network this year. I'm in Houston, Texas right now, and I was a high school teacher and debate coach for 5 years.
Amazing. So glad to have Elise with us as always. Invite you to join our network of schools that are committed to building caring and inclusive communities. We'll go ahead and drop a link in the chat for our website, as well as a place that on the website where you can link up with us in terms of our newsletter, follow us on social media, Facebook and Twitter, as well as Instagram. You can also find additional information about that Caring Schools Network at mcc.gse.harvard.edu. And then we've got a whole string URL after that. We'll drop that in the chat as well. Hope that you check out the Caring Schools Network, and we'll be happy to share more, as I will in a minute, but we'll be happy to share more offline if you have questions about how to work with us closely as a school. Just a brief word about MCC. I always like to share the fact that we really do use the insights and the expertise of practitioners like you all, as well as parents, to develop highly impactful, hopefully low-lift strategies that are meant to promote in children caring and a commitment to the greater good, to the common good. We also look to influence the national conversation about raising children and doing so with a focus on ethical development and really helping them to create a world where they learn to treat each other well day to day, where they come to seek and understand fairness and justice in the world, and hopefully take action on behalf of others in kind and caring ways, even if it comes at times at a cost to themselves. We think that young folks with these capacities, these skills, will be community members and citizens who really strengthen our democracy, who mend the fractures that divide us, and ultimately create a more caring and just world. This is what gets me up every day, and I'm really excited to share some tools today, hopefully, that will help you make this, this vision possible in your local community. In 2014, we started to help schools by gathering and analyzing culture and climate data, building out action plans, and really helping them promote in young folks, as I said, kind of connections to one another and caring relationships at all levels of the school community. That is to say, students, staff and faculty, and families. We've worked with hundreds of schools in this way, and are, of course, available for virtual professional development, consultation, and presentations to faculty and families. We've adapted nearly all of our resources at this point to be highly optimized for both in-person and a virtual environment. We're now in a heavy planning phase where we're going to be creating additional resources and a structure to help students really hone in on building connection in the coming school year, developing relationships, again, at all levels of the school community, preparing young folks with the skills and the capacities needed to then go ahead and care across difference, care for folks who are different from them in a variety of different ways. And we think, again, that enabling schools in this way, building relationships, building skills, and then challenging young folks to care across difference is going to be the work that's before us, and really tremendously important work. So again, happy to share more about how we work with schools if you are interested. Today we'll cover both the learning goals for the webinar and speak a little bit about everyday caring, which is a strategy that we've developed and we think that will be really helpful for you. We'll then dive right into that strategy and discuss kind of how it can be used to help students express and feel as though they care for others, and just sort of go ahead and practice that skill. So without further ado, again, the learning goals, really just want to make sure that you're walking away with a tool in the toolbox, one that you feel that maybe you can modify and integrate in a way that's meaningful to you and to your students. If there's a sort of secondary goal here today, it would just be to continue to connect with you, to build a basis of understanding about what will be helpful for you, and hopefully connect you to one another if that would be helpful as well. So again, we're going to drop a full link of the virtual version of Everyday Caring into the chat, just in case you don't have it handy and want to follow along. We'll walk through 4 components of the strategy today. Really understanding the importance of caring and what it is that we mean when we say caring, how to facilitate acts of caring through a challenge, and then reflecting on that care, as well as how to create kind of ripples of caring across the school community. These are the sort of big buckets that we'll talk about today. So first, why don't we just take 60 seconds right now, if you'll indulge me, and in the chat maybe share about someone that you consider to be a good person, and write some qualities that this person might embody, things that would make you think of them in this way. This is what we're going to ask students to do when we engage with them in the strategy. And so it's always nice to sort of practice the way that we want our students to play, so to speak. So already seeing some responses in the chat. Again, think of one person who you think of as a good person and some qualities that you would associate with them. I've got empathy here. Some folks are saying kind and generous, gratitude, somebody who forgives, forgiveness is popping up here. Trustworthy, again, kindness and gratitude are big ones. Somebody who's a good listener, I love that one. A person who gives you space is such a fascinating way to think about this. I think it's tremendously important. That empathy piece, knowing when someone might need some space, really important. And I've also got some just wonderful notes here from others about their friends who are generous and they take time to celebrate others. I think that's wonderful. Authentic, compassionate, honest. These are all such tremendous words. So thank you for doing that. As you present this strategy to students, you're going to be asking them to do a similar kind of warm-up, right? And it's good for us to give them an opportunity to see how others respond to this question, the wide variety of capacities that might be included in being a good person. We suggest making this sharing anonymous, perhaps, at first, depending on your culture, the culture and the climate of your classroom or the group in which you're doing this. That can sometimes enable misconceptions to be aired in a way that doesn't feel like all eyes are on me if I don't understand what this, what it means, or if I say something that others don't agree with. For other classrooms or groups, anonymity might not be necessary. In fact, it might hinder open and honest conversation. So part of this is knowing your group. This can also be done through a platform like Padlet, Poll Everywhere, or some other online form. Again, if you're looking to do it anonymously, or if you'd like to have these answers collected in a space that you can then share later. Technology can enable us to do that. So check out those platforms. Again, Padlet, Poll Everywhere is a good example. Okay, so the Everyday Caring exercise, again, designed to help children and adults, all of us, we can all use some practice in this area, really reflect on and then discuss how to encourage more kindness, right, and more caring in a school, both for ourselves and for others. So we want to practice regular intentional acts so that they kind of become normalized and just part of our lived experience day to day. And by reporting back, students will be able to learn about each other's experiences and can use them as a source of inspiration. This activity really is great because I think it encourages kind and caring acts in a whole variety of different ways, including self-care, which again, at this time in particular, but perhaps at all times, can be really helpful in building a positive culture and climate, and one that's resilient and strong in the face of obstacle. So we've given you here in the yellow box that you see on the screen a definition of caring, and we define caring as being good to yourself and others, even in small ways that you might not see right away. It's about showing kindness and concern for yourself and for others, and maybe doing so in a way that doesn't necessarily need anything in return, right? It's also about, frankly, helping those in need, especially those who might not be able to help themselves, those who are marginalized, part of marginalized communities or groups, folks who are vulnerable or in need of support in a particular way, okay? So after we've had a chance to kind of wrestle with the definition of caring and get it out in the open and understand it well, the second lesson really focuses on kind of general interest in small acts of caring that students can perform within their school community. So this can be really hard, I think, when learning remotely. And I've heard that from plenty of educators with whom I'm working, that this time in particular presents an obstacle to really committing to caring acts and following through with them. And it's good to acknowledge that. I think it's fair to say to students, you know, this is a unique time. And so hopefully introducing a challenge of some sort might infuse the entire experience with a little bit of fun and maybe even some healthy competition. So we really want to challenge young folks to commit to 5 acts, small acts. These are low lift types of things that they're really going to try to accomplish, right, in a week's time or so. Something to kind of just keep in mind is that these don't have to necessarily be things that happen physically. This is important, again, as we continue to live through this time period. Physical proximity is not something that we have as a leisure anymore. And so reaching out to a friend who might seem down counts in this category. Thanking a teacher, right, for a meaningful class or for addressing a question that we had. That's fine. That's actually the kind of thing that we mean when we say treating each other well day to day. It's about the small acts, but it's about adding up to a good life through those small acts. So again, just a couple of ideas here in that blue call-out box at the bottom. Things like caring for a family member totally works. If for one reason or another it's hard to do 5 acts within the school community, let's have students turn to their families. That's totally fine. Or a neighbor is okay too. In the next class meeting, the next time that everyone gathers, we're checking in on how those acts went. Did we accomplish them? And we can start to dig in a little more deeply about the kind of acts that we took, why we maybe took those acts, for whom, right? Why did we choose those people as opposed to someone else? So we're really opening up a discussion here about how it feels to commit to and go ahead and follow through on acts of caring for other people. And we'll close this lesson by having the class recommit to 5 more acts for the next week, and try maybe a different person or different groups of people, or try caring in a slightly different way. And I think that we can be encouraging switching it up a little bit regardless of how it went. If it went really well, maybe we're trying 1 or 2 of those acts again. That's fine. If on the other hand, it's like, oh, none of that worked. I didn't get a single positive response, or like I wasn't able to actually commit to it and do it. Maybe we're rethinking how we go about it and trying something new. Hearing from other students in the class can be really important and helpful. Gives other students good ideas generally. Maybe even taking note of those and posting the kind of acts that students are committed to in a public space could be helpful as well. In the second to last meeting, students are going to have a chance to really reflect on those acts in a more deep and concerted way. It's going to really we want to have them consider what happens when one act of caring inspires another. I was just saying a second ago about how seeing other people or hearing about other people doing these things can have an almost positive contagion effect, right? Where we see folks committing caring acts and it might inspire us to do the same. So again, it's sort of a chance for students to share not only how they feel when they care for others, but how they experience receiving caring acts. Hopefully it's a situation in which we're not only committing to caring acts and doing them for others, but as part of the classroom community or the advisory, folks are doing them for us, and we get an opportunity to reflect on how that felt. It's important for students to know that feeling hesitant around this work is totally common, right? Maybe even, they may have encountered even folks where their kind act wasn't met well. And I think it's totally okay for us to air that, to share it, to spend some time thinking through how we can grow in this ability, right? A growth mindset. I'm seeing some folks in the chat mentioning this. Totally right. This is about growth. It's about starting in one place and expanding into these skills a little bit. None of us are going to get it right every time. None of us are going to get it right the first time. So reframing caring as something that we do as part of a community, rather than something that needs to be repaid, I think is really key here. When we don't expect something in return, it usually enables us to strike out and take that risk with a little bit more assuredness and a little bit more ease. So as we think about what caring can look like, we want to make sure that we're highlighting small, easy to implement types of things, and hopefully addressing the fact that we don't always need these acts returned to us for them to be meaningful and to be helpful. So this is also an opportunity for you to introduce the Acts of Caring scavenger hunt, where students will keep a lookout for kind acts and note those down. It can also be adapted if schools are working remotely. If you're in a remote environment, these types of caring acts might be verbal gestures, things that we're hearing and seeing over Zoom or whatever platform you're using during class or during other school experiences. They can also include, as I said before, family and neighborhood community acts of caring. Those are okay, especially as we're entering into this sort of scavenger hunt phase. And then for the final lesson, we're going to bring everybody back together and talk through the Acts of Caring scavenger hunt. It's a really, I think, a great opportunity to have some conversation about, what does it feel like on both sides? Again, to be committing to and carrying out these acts of caring, and then also hopefully receiving some of these acts. What did we see others do that felt maybe impactful? Prompting students here at this point to really think about how they might incorporate regular acts of these kind into their daily lives, emphasizing, again, these can be small. These should be behaviors that come somewhat naturally, and that everyone can do something, but it's really particularly powerful and important for us to be considering for whom we're doing kind acts, right? So folks who are, again, different from us, people we may not come in contact with as often, or who might be off of our radar currently. Maybe trying just one act for someone in that category. I think just a great opportunity to expand and to grow in this key skill. So again, that's all to say, plenty of opportunity for really addressing the fact that this can be a low lift, hopefully, but that it's powerful and impactful. So wondering if maybe you'd be willing right now to share a small act of caring that you can do in your community, something that you might actually aspire to or even plan to do, whether it be today or over the next week or so. Would love to see in the chat, maybe if you're willing to, what is it that you plan to do? Again, I always like to have us maybe doing a little bit of the practicing in the same way that we might ask our students to be practicing. And so we get a sense of what that feels like. And So if you'd like to, feel free to fill in the chat. What is it that you're going to do today? What is it that you might do over the weekend for someone? And again, if we can be thinking about those folks who are different from us or who might not be necessarily in our immediate circle of concern, I think that that's additionally beneficial and pretty wonderful. So I've got folks are already letting us know that they're doing some mentoring, taking care of a friend who's going through a health crisis right now. So important, so important. And those are, relatively big types of acts. So for those of you who are in that category and doing some mentoring or helping a friend in need that way, that's terrific. Nancy says writing notes of gratitude to a few colleagues goes such a long way. And of course, the research shows that gratitude is a really powerful tool, both for the folks who receive the gratitude, the expression of gratitude, but really for the folks who are doing the expressing. It can be mutually beneficial. So a wonderful way to express some care. And recognizing that hard work and effort of the teachers in our buildings. Some folks who are starting to think about closing out the school year, maybe just think forward a little bit, right? Expressing some care for those folks, some gratitude for the teachers, the other support staff, really just, and all school adults, I think, again, can go a really long way. And others are saying making sure not to block an intersection to allow someone to turn onto the street. Gina, you must, I don't know, maybe you spend some time driving in Boston where I am right now. If you could just send the message to all Boston drivers, that would be terrific. Not blocking the intersection is a major act of caring. I love that. Others are saying, for my students, make a good morning video to say hello. It's such a terrific idea. I love it. So in any event, thank you for sharing. I want to open up some time right now for questions. If you have questions, please do ask them. I'm sure others have similar kinds of questions. There are already several in the chat. I will go ahead and share some of those with you in a minute. For those of you who are thinking of heading out, it was a real pleasure to share with you Everyday Caring. I hope that you'll get in touch offline. Again, Caring Schools with an S at makingcaringcommon.org is how you can get in touch with me via email. I hope that you'll check out our website. Join us next month for a very similar kind of webinar where we're going to be speaking about how to build a climate committee of students who really can address the culture of the school using data and other means. So join us next month and you can see our webpage devoted to that. With that, I'll say thank you to those of you who have tuned in, and to anybody who is interested in sticking around for questions and answers. We'll go ahead and open up the Q&A now.